In the West, the entire Orthodox communion of the Balkans and the Near East languished in isolation, confined in a culturally and religiously alien Islamic world. Russia alone escaped that fate to aspire for leadership in Eastern Orthodoxy, precisely as its vast empire was beginning to take root. Ivan III, the Great, married a niece of the last Byzantine emperor to establish a link with Byzantium. He assumed the titles Emperor and Tsar, a Slavonic equivalent to the Roman Caesar, and adopted the double-headed eagle of Byzantium as his state emblem. The Russians presumed to be the successors to the Byzantines. The first Rome, they reasoned, had fallen to barbarians because of heresy. The second to the Turks because of sin for accepting the unholy union with the Catholic Church, the short-lived Union of Florence. Moscow was still standing, the third and last Rome, the center of Orthodox Christianity. There would be no other Rome, they said. Ivan IV, the Terrible, assuming the role of champion and protector for all Orthodoxy, established his 16th century reign on that foundation and built an empire on it. With the approval of all Eastern patriarchates, the Russian Church was recognized as autocephalous, independent of any external church authority. The Bishop of Moscow was elevated to patriarch.
In the meantime, all the other Eastern patriarchates remained isolated from the mainstream of European political and religious developments. Constantinople could not agree to overtures from the Protestant Reformation movement that shook the Western establishment in the 16th century. Neither was it in a position to stem the intrusion of Roman Catholic Jesuits and Protestant missionaries on Orthodox territories outside the Ottoman Empire. As a result, at the Union of Brest-Litovsk, an agreement concluded in the late 16th century, millions of Orthodox Christians in Ukraine, although allowed to retain their Eastern rites and customs, submitted to the doctrine of Rome and the jurisdiction of its Pope. The Ukrainian and other Eastern churches which in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries entered into union with the Roman Catholic Church have come to be collectively referred to as the Uniate or Eastern Catholic churches. The recrimination and occasional violence that sometimes erupts between Uniates and Orthodox even today remains one of the sensitive areas of disagreement between the Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches.
Greeks, on the other hand, suffered a different fate. Under the demoralizing effect of unrelenting social pressure, it became all but impossible for them to separate church from nation. More than ever before, Hellenism and Orthodoxy became inseparably intertwined. Secretly, the church sustained and nurtured the flickering candles of Greek culture, customs, and tradition. If it weren't for the church, Greece would have lost all sense of national identity and unity. It was the church that stoked the flames of liberty. It was the church that inspired a demoralized, subservient nation to strike the banner that launched its revolution in 1821. Orthodoxy did not emerge from its long siege under the Ottomans without its share of martyrs, 11 patriarchs and 100 bishops among them. Cyril Lucaris, who served 7 times as Patriarch of Alexandria and Constantinople, was drowned. Saint Cosmas Etolos, a monk who had become the most prolific missionary in Greece, also suffered a martyr's death. The ecumenical patriarch Gregorius V, along with 2 metropolitans and 12 bishops, was hung at the gates of the Patriarchate in retaliation for the outbreak of the Greek Revolution. Nevertheless, Ottoman rule did not erase the Orthodox faith. After the Greek uprising and the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, riding the wave of 19th century militant nationalism, the Church emerged safe and sound, but with its structure permanently altered. The churches of Greece, Serbia, Romania, and Bulgaria could not continue to function ecclesiastically under the jurisdiction of the Patriarchate that remained isolated in the foreign and hostile environment of the Ottoman Empire. By the end of the century, they had established national, self-governing, independent churches. The ancient patriarchates of the Middle East, their strength tested by the long struggle to survive under Islam, found themselves outside the boundaries of modern Turkey. They are still surrounded by predominantly non-Christian populations, but have re-established their absolute independence from external church influence. Alexandria has extended its jurisdiction beyond Egypt and North Africa, south throughout the African continent, with especially vibrant missionary activity in East Africa.
The
presence of Christianity in Africa will continue, and that means that the Patriarchate of Alexandria will survive. Africa is a continent with many Muslims, especially north of the equator. But it also has Christian Africans from the equator and below. Africa's Christianity and Africa's Islam meet, and they have a duty to find a way of life, both just and peaceful. And in this way of life, the Orthodox Patriarchate of the Orient, which has sowed its seeds in Uganda and Kenya, where we have 100,000 Orthodox Africans, will survive too. And who knows? Perhaps tomorrow, in the march of time, we shall have in the Patriarchate of Alexandria an African patriarch.
The Patriarchate of Antioch, now based in Damascus, the Syrian capital, continues to serve the Arab Christian population in Lebanon and Syria, with Arab patriarchs and bishops since the turn of the century.
Islam is a very, very important phenomenon, and one has to face it. Not in a negative way. A Christian cannot be negative in any of the situations. He has to face things, and he has to be courageous enough to speak his faith. I don't believe very much in controversies, but I believe in exchange of human existence, of human feelings, of human collaborations. Because after all, not everyone in life knows every single iota of all dogmas. Religions are not dogmas. Religions are life. And if you meet people on the level of life, then you truly meet them and better understand them.
Jerusalem, the Church of St. James, the brother of Christ, still ministers to a small, primarily Arab flock in Palestine, but provides invaluable service as the guardian and protector of Orthodox shrines in the Holy Land.
Το Πατριαρχείο αγωνίζεται επί πολλούς αιώνας.
The Patriarchate has struggled for many centuries, here in the Holy Land and in the Middle East in general, to protect our sacred national heritage and to preserve what our forefathers created. The Greek presence here dates to 232 before Christ. We came not as conquerors, nor to destroy and then leave. We came as reformers. That is why what our ancestors created today adorn the Middle East, and especially the Holy City. New excavations provide new evidence on the presence and work of the Greeks here. Our church undertook the leadership of our people after the Arab conquest of the Holy Lands. And since then, she strives to prove herself worthy of our nation, worthy of this great gift from God, who entrusted in the hands of Greeks the protection and service of the holiest pilgrimages of humanity.
Την διαφύλαξη, την εξυπηρέτηση των ιεροτέρων προσκυνημάτων της ανθρωπότητας.
Constantinople, although stripped of most of its former territories and deprived of its flock by harsh political realities, still retains its position of primacy among Orthodox episcopates. In such a shrinking world, East and West have lost their meaning, and the ecumenical patriarch is called upon to provide more than just spiritual leadership, emerging as an increasingly visible spokesman for worldwide orthodoxy.
As the first General Secretary of the World Council of Churches stated once, the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople was the first church in the world to call the churches for cooperation by issuing the famous encyclical of 1920. In this encyclical, the Patriarchate was saying that the churches could, for one moment, forget their theological differences and come together to cooperate in the practical field by creating a